Dead Chow Duo, episode number 75. How are you doing, Alexander?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Andy?
Fine. I had food poisoning.
Wait, what?
You heard me. I had food poisoning.
From what? If you don't mind me
I
asking.
had Zaxby's,
Oh, no.
and then I did not have a great time after Zaxby's.
We just got Zaxby's down here in the Central Florida area. Like, it hasn't been here for very long. And I've never had an issue. But I have heard that maybe some of the older restaurants have not been as great in terms of quality control. So it doesn't surprise me
Zaxby's
too
is
much.
great.
I do love Zaxby's. They have really good sauces. The chicken's always pretty good. Like I said, I've never had an issue, knock on wood, with Zaxby's. For some reason, I'm sorry, everything just went full screen there. For Andy, my bad on that. But yeah. So if you're listening to the video version, oh, look at that, Four Loko. I'm drinking a Bud Light tonight, so I don't have a Four Loko.
I went to church for the first time legally today.
Well, there you go. Andy went to church. And you'd have to be a long-time listener to get that inside joke. So, Andy, now that we've gone through how we've been for the week.
No happy birthday wishes from Alex.
Wait, what?
My birthday is literally today.
Is it really your birthday today?
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like a terrible co-host slash friend. Probably friend first, co-host second. Because I like, honestly, if we stopped doing this podcast tomorrow, we'd still be friends. But a happy birthday, Andy. I'm sorry I didn't wish you a happy birthday. I know you're not really big on birthdays, but
I would have thought for my co-host, at least get something of a bad birthday.
well, you know what? After this is all said and done, I got a little something for you. So anyway, this week, Andy, aside from your birthday, what have you been watching? And food poisoning. Since you had food poisoning, you probably had plenty of time to watch stuff in between running to the bathroom.
Not really. Surprisingly, food poisoning does not put me in the mood to watch things.
So, like, I've never really truly had food poisoning. I don't think I have. Maybe I have and I just didn't know it. But I would like to think that I would know that that's what I was dealing with. Like, how bad is it?
It wasn't bad. Just like I felt sick until I fell asleep. Woke up, I was fine.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then that doesn't sound too bad.
I don't know. My stomach's been on and off
Oh, okay.
since, but it's not like deadly. Well, it used to be, I guess, but
I got one really bad batch. I went to Taco Bell, and I remember when I was eating it, I was saying, this doesn't taste quite right. And for the next couple days, I was pretty jacked up. I didn't really hold it against Taco Bell because, I think that kind of stuff can happen anywhere for a variety of different reasons. And it's not even necessarily something that, like, is the fault of the people that work there. It could be something out of their control. But, yeah, it sounds pretty awful, man. So, this week, Andy, what have you been watching? What have you been playing?
I watched a short from 2020 called Date Night.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a anthology movie called Tokyo.
Okay.
I watched this movie called Cremaster 1. It's a part of this series called the Cremaster Cycle. Just a pretentious thing. Most pretentious thing I've ever seen in my entire life. DVDs for this sell for like $500,000. And I watched it on my pirate ship. But
Yar.
it's so pretentious. It's literally like 40 minutes. There's 5 of them. I watched the first one. And it's like 50 minutes of dancing.
Okay.
It's like super slow. I don't know. It's really
sounds
bad.
like something I would really dislike.
Yeah, you would not like it.
Yeah.
Then I watched this movie from 2019 called Invisible Life. It's a Brazilian movie. It's an Amazon exclusive. It's a extremely beautiful movie that I'd recommend from last year. I think it's my number 6 movie from last year now. And then I watched 1917, the Film Club pick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched Onward. which you watched Onward as well.
Oh yeah.
Then I watched a bunch of movies from 1999 because that's been my kind of thing recently. Apparently, I watched 10 Things I Hate About You.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Girl Interrupted, a George Carlin special, You're All Deceased. I watched The Matrix for the first time, Office Space, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, Ravenous, Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, Julian Donkey Boy, and then I was halfway through American Movie whenever this call started, so I didn't get to finish it.
Yeah.
And then I've been watching New Girl, and playing-wise, I've actually been playing games.
Okay.
Forza Horizon 4.
Ooh, good pick.
And then Slay the Spire.
So, a lot of really, I'm afraid to ask you, and we'll have to do this some other time, but like I'm afraid to ask you about. Well, no, like 10 Things I Hate About You, The Matrix, the George Carlin special, and Office Space. Those are all films or stand-up specials that I just love to this day. Yeah. But I realize that I'm a little bit blinded by my own nostalgia. Like when I watch 10 Things I Hate About You, I go, this is a movie that's very specific to its time period. It's kind of like... What do you
think I think about that?
I would say that if I had to guess, I would say that you would... You wouldn't say that it was a great film. You would say it's a good teen movie. It does what it's supposed to do. It's an entertaining teen movie and nothing more.
7 out of 10. Great movie.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, I'm nostalgic for it. Like, I loved it when it came out.
Yeah,
and I still like it now. It still holds up pretty well for me. I think it's one of Heath Ledger's better performances. And that's saying a lot because, I mean, he was good in a lot of stuff, but I feel like it was really his first breakout role. And then there's Joseph Gordon-Levitt in it. Yeah. And, oh, God, I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. Julia Stiles. She's amazing. I love everything she's in. I love her. She's great. So, yeah.
I was watching it. I just like realized at one point, I'm just smiling. I'm just having a good time watching this movie.
It feels good. It's got a really good and positive message behind it. Unlike a lot of other teen movies where it's kind of fluff, like it's all about believing in yourself and being true to yourself. And I kind of like that. And I think it's kind of a generational thing. I would compare it to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where a lot of people that were, so for example, my cousins that are about 10 to 15 years older than me, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is basically their 10 Things I Hate About You. It's a very generational movie that has a good message behind it and still holds up today. So
I prefer 10 Things I Hate About You.
Well, yeah, I mean me too, but
George Carlin, it's very fitting to the time right now.
It definitely is, yeah.
Oddly. Because he talks about washing your hands and stuff.
Yeah, he does.
And I found it pretty funny. Not like the greatest special I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's not his best, but it's definitely not the worst one he ever did. If that makes sense.
Office Space was a 6 out of 10. I've seen it before. It's just
it's good. It's good. It's not the best ever. Like I feel like it gets a little bit overhyped, but it's still pretty good.
I mean, it's a movie of its time. So
yeah, and I think
people call it the cubicle movies, where 1999, the year of the cubicle, like The Matrix, Fight Club, Office Space, all these movies involve cubicles, and like they're all like The Matrix about like going to a different world because you're tired of this like basic job and doing something else, and the Fight Club is like you mentioned like masculinity, and the Office Space is similar to like WWE. It's like, oh, you hate your boss. It's a movie about, oh, I hate working here. I hate my boss. Let's go against it.
Yeah, and it's written by Mike Judge, who a lot of people know him from Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill. And it's very reminiscent of that, the comedy style and things of that nature. And I really like Office Space. And I also think that if you've ever been someone like myself, who to this day, I still work in a cubicle at a major corporation, that's been the majority of my professional career, is being a numbers guy who sits in a cubicle and crunches numbers all day for some corporation. That's kind of what I've done my entire adult life, aside from retail at a very early age. You know,
hey, pizza place.
You definitely, yeah, I got hired and fired in the same day from a pizza place when I was 16. But yeah, as an adult, I mean, I've really only had 3 real jobs, and I just started my 3rd real job 2 months ago. So it definitely resonates with me, and there's a lot of humor to be had from those situations. But this week, myself, I've been watching a little bit of The Office. I've just gone back and kind of cherry picked a couple episodes that I wanted to watch. I've been watching more American Dad and Aqua Teen Hunger Force on the Adult Swim app on my smart TV. I highly suggest anybody out there who likes anything Adult Swim, download that app. It's amazing how much content is out there for free. Watch a couple old episodes of Rick and Morty. Really enjoyed those. And what?
Old is just a very weird word to use with that show.
Well, when I say old, they were like...
I mean, I get what you mean, but like,
they were from season... Well, they were from season 1, and let's remember, like, season 1 happened 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
Yeah, but still, like, I wouldn't count those old.
Okay, that's fair. So, yeah, did watch that. Been keeping up on my regular DVR shows, is what I call them. Like, WrestleMania, watched that.
A DVR show like WrestleMania.
Well, no,
Sorry.
but like, I'm sorry. Anything WWE, I count it as a DVR show because I never watch WWE live. I watch it on DVR, so I can fast. Live? No, I actually watched that on demand. I watched it a little bit behind.
You watch it one sitting?
No, I didn't. I watched both nights, but I was about an hour behind both times.
I mean, it happened 3 nights technically if you watch the newest Raw.
Okay, listen, actually, guy, I feel like you're really picking apart my.
Did you watch the newest Raw?
Not yet. Again,
there's another WrestleMania match that they added at the end of Raw.
Well, there you go. So, but yeah, I've been keeping up on WWE, The Prophet, Shark Tank. There's one other show that I'm forgetting, and I feel bad for forgetting it. And then I watched Onward, Picard. Yes, watched the finale of Picard, and Star Wars, Clone Wars. Watched the latest episode of that, and loving both of those. The Picard season finale. Oh my goodness, it was so good, and it got me so emotional. And speaking of emotional, I watched Onward this weekend. And I cried like a little baby because that story really spoke to me on a personal level. As someone who lost my dad at an early age and has a younger brother, it was too much for me, man.
It hit home more for me. I have an older brother and my dad died at a young age.
Well, there you go. So you're basically my little brother, I felt when I watched that, I totally knew how the older brother felt in that movie, trying to guide his younger brother through, difficult times and growing up and all that. And the single mom and the stepdad that gets involved, and, it's never an easy fit when a step parent comes along. It's never an easy transition. But I thought it treated that whole thing so well. I loved it, and at the end I got really emotional. My wife got emotional. It's really good. I would recommend anybody watching it, and it was so funny until it got emotional at the end. I was laughing throughout the entire film. It just kept making me crack up with some of the humor, and I love the D&D aspect of it. I know some people, it was something that a lot of people it polarized people, if you will. But I really liked how they tried to implement some, D&D and Magic the Gathering and just normal mythic lore references throughout the movie. I really liked it. It was really good. And then I watched 1917, and I'm probably forgetting some other stuff that I watched. But as far as playing this week, it has been a lot of Animal Crossing in this house. My wife got a copy of it this week. She's been playing it a lot. I've been playing it a lot. And then other than that, I've only played World of Warcraft. So.
To add to Onward, I don't think... I think it could have been done better, but I did cry.
Um,
I've cried 3 days in a row. Today would break that because I haven't cried today yet. Watching movies. So I cried to a Dale Earnhardt documentary that I forgot to mention.
Was that the one that was on ESPN3?
No, it was a YouTube video actually.
Oh, okay.
From this YouTuber called Implement. He has a series called There'll Never Ever Be Another. And it is like there'll never ever be another show like SpongeBob. There'll never ever be another show like Monday Night Raw. And then there's never be another NASCAR driver like Dale Earnhardt. And there's 2 other ones, but yeah, that one got me. Invisible Life, as I mentioned earlier, beautiful movie from 2019. That one really got me. It's on Amazon Prime. I'd recommend anyone watch it. It is foreign, so I will. It is the entire movie's in Portuguese because it's a Brazilian movie.
Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know. I think Onward was good, and it's a darn shame.
I give it a 6 out of 10.
It's a darn shame that, it didn't do well in theaters just because of the current events that are going on right now where the theaters had to shut down. So, yeah, that's what we've been watching and playing this week. Hope you enjoyed it. A little bit longer list from me, and we definitely got more discussion out of it. So, speaking of what we've been watching this week, WrestleMania 36 was this weekend.
Yeah.
And boy, was it a weird one. I gotta say, this was a weird watch for me as a wrestling fan. Obviously, the first WrestleMania ever to not take place before a live crowd. And it was immediately evident while watching it how much crowd reaction plays into professional wrestling. So, Andy, I'll let you lead off. How did you feel about WrestleMania 36 as a whole, both nights total?
I don't think it was the worst Mania I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't think it's nowhere close to the best.
It's definitely not the best.
Not even close. I think that when Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton were on the mic, it was really boring because for some reason they would just have dead air they just wouldn't talk. Like during the Edge and Randy Orton match, a 40-minute long match, they just weren't talking at some points. Like Jerry Lawler, as much of a legend as he is, he gets annoying at some points for talking too much, especially during promos. But it makes me see the other aspect of that, where if someone's just not talking, how boring the match is.
Yeah, I totally get that. And now that you mention that, it's actually something my wife picked up on too. The first question she asked me is, why don't they have Corey Graves out there? Because I feel like he would bring a little bit more dynamic side, a more dynamic side to the commentary than Saxton and Phillips, who are both very straight commentators.
They could have got the GOAT, Mauro Ranallo from NXT.
I would agree with you. I'm a big Mauro Ranallo fan, and I would have liked that. I would have liked Corey Graves. I liked that they brought JBL on.
I enjoyed JBL.
I've always thought people were a little bit too hard on JBL, but at the same time, I think the Phillips Saxton combo on commentary,
it's bad.
I felt like it kind of suffered in part because it wasn't in front of a live crowd and they didn't have that to play off of. Because a lot of times,
not that experience.
I do feel like those two are kind of feeling each other out still as a combo, as a 2-man combo, as opposed to a 3-man combo, which they were working as part of with Corey Graves. But now as a 2-man crew, I mean, it's definitely a different chemistry, and I think they're still feeling that out.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I felt like all the matches had disappointing endings. I wasn't really satisfied with most matches. The matches I was interested in, I feel like Becky Lynch, Shayna shouldn't have gone that way. The ladder match, the dumbest ladder match ever, the triple threat ladder match with the tag team belts, was a great match, but the ending was so bad. Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, best match on the entire card. Fantastic match. I gotta mention it. Braun Strowman versus Goldberg. What a match. Spear, 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 spear. Body slam, body slam, body slam, body slam. Match over.
Yeah.
The cinematic matches, like the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match, I think the Boneyard match is overrated. I think it wasn't. Everyone's hyping it up like the greatest match it's ever been. I think it was fine. The Firefly Funhouse match was funny, and I guess it was a change of pace. I mean, it's a top 3 match in the entire card, but I wouldn't really like to see that again.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun as a one-time like gimmick match, you know. And I think Bray and Cena worked really well together. Then other than that, yeah, like even like the Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar, also a terrible match for the belt. I mean, do you enjoy just watching finisher after finisher after finisher after finisher after finisher and nothing else?
No, that would be one of my criticisms.
And then Edge versus Randy Orton, way too long.
Yeah.
But fine match. It was just way too long. It was boring because of the commentating.
It's fair.
And then also Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. Why was that the first Why was that the first match on the second day? That was arguably the best match of the second day, and it was the first match on the card.
So I feel like that was to. So Chris Jericho, always talks about this. He says if I'm not going to be the last match, I want to be the first match, because the first match is generally the pace setter for the whole card. So yeah. I get moving that match to the first match out of the gate. You get Flair Ripley, which was a good match, and it went for 20 minutes. And if there was a crowd there, I would still lead with this match, because I feel like that's the match, other than the main event, that's going to get people going, and it's going to get people interested in the card. That's just my thought behind it as an amateur wrestling booker.
Of that night, yeah.
Yeah. So really quick, because I know a lot of people who listen aren't really wrestling fans, so I don't want to harp too much on wrestling, but I do want to say I think that they did the best that they could. I want to be really clear right out of the gate. I think this was the best WrestleMania we could have possibly gotten without a live crowd. And not having a live crowd really changes things. I mean, it's a real game changer. And I don't think you really realize how big crowd interaction is in professional wrestling or professional sports as a whole until you watch something like this without a crowd, and you realize how kind of empty it feels from an auditory standpoint. But overall, I thought, first night starts out with the tag team women's match between Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, and the Kabuki Warriors. Good match, good ending, 15 minutes. If there was a crowd, they'd be really hyped up, despite the next match being Elias and Corbin, which was kind was kind of a snooze fest, but Elias is doing pretty well as a face, so there is that. Lynch versus Baszler, I'm sorry, I always mispronounce her name. I think this was the time for Becky Lynch to lose and go away for a few months, because I think right now people are starting to get a little tired of Becky Lynch. And it's that old saying, how can I miss you if you never go away? I think it would be good for Becky Lynch to maybe lose here, take a little time off. Lord knows she needs it. She hasn't had time off in a while. I'm sure she would enjoy it. I think it would be good for her to take a little time off. And then when she comes back, she's fresh, she's renewed. Yeah. And people want more Becky Lynch then, but I feel like right now they're kind of a little fatigued, if you will, of Becky Lynch, as good as she is.
She's had the belt for a year. She was supposed to take time off. Her and Seth want to take time off. And it's the perfect setup for her to lose the belt.
I think that's the perfect time for her to lose.
Seth was at a perfect point after that match with Kevin Rollins. That's Kevin Rollins.
Rollins, yeah.
It was like a perfect point to leave.
Yeah.
And she's recently been like super annoying and cocky.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, that was perfect, like, get her like super annoying to push Shayna Baszler, even though I think Shayna Baszler's character has been awfully handled. it was just like a perfect point that they
I think
fumbled on.
I think they've booked her well, but I think some of her promos
The
haven't been
Elimination
the
Chamber
best.
was so bad.
Okay,
That's not how chokeholds work. You put a chokehold in, no one instantly taps.
that okay, fair enough. Anyway, moving on. I feel like we're nitpicking now, but anyway, Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. It's an okay match. I think it furthers the angle. The Morrison Uso Kingston match for the tag team titles was an unexpected high point of the evening, and all three of those guys killed it. It was a great match. I would encourage anyone who hasn't watched WrestleMania, if you're going to skip around a little bit, if you only want to watch the high points, you got to watch this match, and you got to watch the next match. Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, amazing.
Yeah.
The way they wrote it, the finish of the match is tremendous. It's great. The trash talk throughout the match is great from both guys. You could tell they went into this match knowing there's going to be no crowd noise, and we want to make it feel special. And that trash talk in between them throughout the match was perfect. It was great. Strowman Goldberg, it was as bad as everybody would expect. It's no disrespect to Strowman. Strowman could work. Goldberg
I just
can't.
don't like him.
But Strowman can work. Say whatever you want about him. The dude can work. He's a big guy that can work, but Goldberg can't. And then the Undertaker AJ Styles match, I think, should have finished WrestleMania as a whole. I think it was the best match of both nights. I'm going to disagree with Andy here. I don't think it was overrated. I loved the way they filmed it.
I wasn't saying it wasn't great.
And I've got to say this. If I'm the WWE, every Undertaker match from here on out, it's going to be taped like this one because it allows you to protect them. Unlike the Goldberg-Undertaker match at the Saudi Arabia event a few months ago where he got dropped on his head, he was gassed in the ring. This allows you to keep the Undertaker special, tell a good story, and also allow multiple takes for him to do matches that feel supernatural because that's what the Undertaker character is about. So I would expect the WWE to do more of this in the future with the Undertaker character. Second night, really good one. As we talked about, Flair Ripley, it was a good match. I think Ripley should have gone over, but I've heard rumors that Ripley is injured and has been working injured for a while, and that's why she lost. So I'm thinking they're going to bring her back when she's healthy. She'll get her win back. Aleister Black, Bobby Lashley, nothing really to talk about there. Otis, Dolph Ziggler, nothing to really talk about there. Edge, Randy Orton went on too long. It was a good match, but it went on too long. Didn't need to go 36 minutes. There were periods of time where my wife said it sounded like we were watching adult entertainment because it was just two guys going, like it was, there were too many low points. It was too long. They could have cut it down to 20 minutes and still told a good story and had a great match. Street Profits versus Garza in theory wasn't really much to talk about. But I do love the Street Profits. I think they have a huge future in store. The 5-way elimination match for the SmackDown Women's Championship was actually a good match that I didn't think was going to be very good, but it was pretty good. Loved the Firefly Funhouse match. Loved it. A little bit outside the box, but that's what I expected from the Fiend character and John Cena. It also allowed them to let John Cena not take a lot of bumps. You could tell this was made so that Cena didn't have to take a lot of bumps. I think he took one total bump the entire match, and I think that's mainly because he's like The Rock right now. He can't get injured in the ring because he's got movie contracts on the horizon, but they did pretty good there. And then the McIntyre Brock Lesnar match. I just gotta say, man, can we stop getting Brock Lesnar main events at WrestleMania? Because his matches are, I throw the guy in the corner, I do the shoulder charges in the corner, suplex, F5, maybe another F5, a lot of kickouts, a lot of finishers. It's the same match. Over and over and over and over and over. You know what? I never thought I'd say this because you know this, Andy, because you have been following wrestling long enough to know. Goldberg could never work. He could never put on a 5-star match. Brock Lesnar could work in the ring. He could. He did. If you don't believe me, go back and watch.
I don't know. I think he's still great, but it's not.
He's too one-dimensional now, and he doesn't have to be. Like, go back and watch Lesnar Angle at WrestleMania, I think 21.
I mean, Lesnar's. I feel like him and Drew were great. The storyline in total.
The storyline was great. The writing was good. The promos were good. The work in the ring was disappointing.
Everything leading up to this was great between them.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's just a disappointing match.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I think that, like, I would agree with Andy. I don't think this was the best WrestleMania ever, and I don't think that we could ever expect it to be the best WrestleMania ever. And I think if all of us as wrestling fans sat down and picked what we think is the best WrestleMania of all time, we'd probably all have different answers, right?
17, hands down.
So for me, it's 33. But, you know, 31. I'm sorry. So we'd all have different answers.
That's odd that I'm going with the older one than you, since our age difference.
But but here's the problem. You know, is 17 just as good as 31? Probably. I just like 31 more because of the ending. Right? And some people would say 30 because it's the Daniel Bryan saga that was masterfully done. It just... We'd all have different answers. WrestleMania, there's so many good ones. It's crazy. Like, it's crazy to even have to pick one. But I think given the circumstances, they did as well as we could have ever expected as fans. And, you know, kudos to the WWE for giving us 2 nights of distraction that took my mind.
4.
Okay, actually, guy.
SmackDown. Saturday, Sunday, WrestleMania, Monday Night Raw.
Oh my god. Okay. my point in all of this is they gave me 2 nights of must-see TV that took my mind off of all the nonsense going on right now out in the world. So, great WrestleMania. I can't wait for WrestleMania 37. I'm disappointed that this happened with WrestleMania 36 because I was kind of sort of planning on going to WrestleMania 36 until it got canceled. So there you go.
It got canceled. It still happened.
It happened it happened where I couldn't buy a ticket. Yeah. Let's put it that way.
I was like memeing with my friends. It's like they should let Alex go, but only if he doesn't talk the entire time, just sits there.
Yeah, I can only sit there and take it in.
Sit there silently. In the crowd.
Exactly. So, WrestleMania 36, good one. I'm surprised me and Andy both enjoyed it as much as we did. So, moving on to listener questions. This week we have a few. So, I'm not going to read this whole question, but it comes from @SpoonSandwich on Twitter.
You don't have to read the parentheses.
Well, yeah. Jared, thank you for being a Patreon backer, and he basically asks us, the NFL owners approved a playoff expansion for the 2020 season, adding 1 team per conference, 2 number 1 seeds get a first round bye, and 3 wild card games per conference in the first round. He asks, is it needed? Is this something that you wanted? Is it cool?
No.
I'm going to go out there. I don't think it's needed. I think that the league will make more money. So if you're going to look at it from a fiscal standpoint, I would say, yeah, it's totally cool. It's totally needed. But from a competitive standpoint, as a fan, I kind of like how things are right now. And the only reason I say that is the last couple of years, I feel like the last 3 or 4 weeks of the regular season in the NFL have meant more than they ever have before, especially in the NFC, where getting that last wild card spot, it's hard, man. Like, you got to be good to get that last wild card slot. Like, keep in mind, one of the wild card teams last year was the Seattle Seahawks, and they had a good record. They did not have a record. Yeah. They had a record that in most divisions would have had them as division champions. So I kind of like getting a playoff spot special and making it feel special. And the only reason I would say I'm a little worried about it we're going to get more playoff football. So as a fan, that's a positive. I like that aspect of it.
Just 2 more games, technically.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still 2 more games, right? So as a football fan, I'm loving that aspect of it. But I don't want the playoffs to get too watered down, because then it's going to be like the NBA. I mean, like, the 8th seed in the NBA in either conference is probably going to get swept. I mean, like, the 8th seed in the NBA. Yeah, the 8th seed in the NBA has only won 1 time.
Currently in the NFL. I've said this about MLB in the past. Really, there's only 3 teams per conference that can really realistically win and go to the finals.
You're right.
Typically in most major playoffs.
You're right.
So adding more teams is going to add more boring, meaningless games to the playoffs. But, I mean, sure, it makes it more meaningful. Now that only number 1 seed's only get a wild card, it makes it more meaningful to be good in the regular season, I guess.
I mean, last year, you're right. I mean, if I apply that logic, last year in the AFC, I think the only 3 teams that I could have conceivably seen winning an NFL Super Bowl would be in the AFC, the Ravens, Chiefs, and Texans. I really like the Texans.
Patriots?
They were good. No, I like the Texans more than the Patriots. And then, well, last year at least. And then, in the NFC, I really thought it was a 2-team race. I thought it was going to come down to the Seahawks and the 49ers. I thought one of those 2 teams, I thought the NFC West was by and far the best division. The best division in the NFC last year. And that's saying a lot, because the NFC East was garbage. But, the NFC South was competitive-ish, and the NFC West was stacked. The Rams, they're no slouch.
Packers and Vikings, North.
Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, Packers and Vikings in the North. I mean, there was a lot of stiff competition in the NFC, but I really thought the 2 best teams by and far, head and shoulders above the competition, were the Seahawks and the 49ers. If I had to pick a 3rd team, I would have gone with the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think it's needed, but I guess from a fan perspective, I get more football, so I shouldn't be too upset. I just don't want them to keep adding more, because it's going to get really watered down. And I mean, it's kind of a joke that there's 30 teams in the NBA and 16 teams make the playoffs. I mean, that's kind of a joke. Like, more than half the teams make the... Yeah, I know, and I hate that. But
hockey, the hockey playoffs are wild. You don't know.
But that being said, it's the best playoffs in the sports.
First round.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the best sports playoffs every year. Year in, year out. You've said it, and I agree with you. I'm not even a big NHL fan. So, yeah, thanks for the question, Jared. I guess, like, the other thing, too, I would say to Jared is, like, let's see how it plays out. I mean, it might be a huge value add next year, and we just don't know it yet.
A negative.
What's that?
It's already kind of a problem going on, but there's going to be more teams that make the playoffs that should fire their coach.
Yeah.
But now that there's more wildcard spots.
Yeah.
It's going to save coaches' jobs, which is great. Sure, save jobs. Chucky milk time.
Yeah, I'm sure,
But there's going to be teams that don't deserve to be in the playoffs. They're not going to contend. And their coach is going to stay there, even though he probably deserves to be fired. Cowboys, for example, for the longest time.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that's going to happen. I mean, Jason Garrett would probably still have a job if it was.
Because you can't fire a coach if he made the playoffs.
It's really hard to do that. But you know what? Like, my favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, fired Tony Dungy, the year after he went to the playoffs, and they made a run, and they hired John Gruden because they thought Tony Dungy...
Traded for him.
They did trade for him. You are correct. They traded
more for John Gruden than the Texans got for DeAndre Hopkins.
And I know some people out there are shaking their head and saying that's a lot of stuff to give away for a coach, but they won the Super Bowl.
3 first-round picks.
They won the Super Bowl.
No matter what, how bad moves happen, if you win the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter.
I don't care what anybody says. If you are an NFL team and if I owned an NFL team and you came to me and said, Alex, there's a trade you can make, but you have to trade your first round pick for the next 10 years. But you'll win a Super Bowl. I do it every single time. I do it.
That's how the Vikings were with the Herschel Walker trade, but failed.
Well, yeah, but the Bucks trade, it worked out. They went to the Super Bowl the very next year. They won the Super Bowl. It was worth it every time. And as a Bucks fan, yes, I remember fans being upset that we didn't have a first round pick for the next 3 years to look forward to as fans. We just didn't have anything to look forward to in the draft. But I kept reminding myself throughout all that, we won a Super Bowl. As fans, we got to see that, right? Yep. So they don't have a pick, but they did it for the right reason. Anyway, moving on to the next question here. This one comes from Daniel of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast. Great podcast. Check it out. ReasonsI'mBroke.com. One of my favorite listens every single week, other than this show, because, this show's the greatest. But yeah, Daniel asks, thoughts on Sony slowing down PSN downloads in the interest of preventing a full network crash? Has Microsoft needed to take similar measures yet? So I'll lead off here first. So I did take a look into this. Sony had to do this because they were asked to by European regulatory groups that monitor the internet. The Sony PlayStation 4, it has a way bigger user base than the Xbox One. I mean, it's crazy, the disparity between the two. And specifically, they have a much larger user base over in Europe. And they did need to throttle speeds on their network just to keep things up and running in Europe. And Microsoft, to my knowledge, I looked and looked and looked again right before we recorded. I could not find any definite proof that they had to do it.
It's been acting wonky recently.
Everything's been acting wonky recently. Like, Netflix has been kind of crazy for me. YouTube's been crazy for me. Xbox Live has been crazy for me. Even streaming services like Netflix and Hulu, it's been a challenge. So I don't know that Microsoft officially did anything, but I would tell you that my download speeds on Xbox have been a little bit slower. And I think that's just due to network congestion. I don't know that it's necessarily because they throttled, but I mean, in the end, isn't it the same thing for the end user? So like, I think Sony and Microsoft, if they did throttle, I think they made the right move. Like, would you agree, Andy? Isn't that better than just having an altogether shutdown? Or
Sure.
That's Andy's thoughts on it. Yeah, I mean, there just really isn't much to like comment on here, because like so here's where I stand on it. Like, if Sony came out and said this, and Netflix, YouTube, Hulu, and probably countless other services hadn't said the same thing was necessary for them, I'd say, hey, maybe there's something a little fish going on here, right? But everybody else had to do this. Like, for a week, YouTube was defaulting to 480p. And I say that as someone who watches way too much YouTube. Like, it was defaulting.
Did not experience that.
I definitely did. And it was more rampant overseas as well. So I even know, like, my ISP sent something out basically saying, like, you may experience lower than normal speeds just due to network congestion. And I certainly have. Everybody's working from home, and more people are streaming that maybe aren't working, or in their leisure time off of work, they're streaming because they can't go out. I think we kind of all saw this coming. It's just kind of an unfortunate byproduct of the current events that we're dealing with. So kudos to Sony. I mean, it's very rare that you'll hear me on here talking about the great things that Sony does, but I think it's a good move on Sony's part, and kudos to them. I feel bad for the end user, but there's nothing you can do about it. Speaking of Sony, Andy, the PlayStation 5 controller
Oh boy.
The DualSense, not DualShock. It's no longer the DualShock. The DualSense 5 controller was just unveiled today. How do you feel about it, Andy?
I really don't want you what you want me to tell you.
Well, come on, man. Give me something.
It looks stupid.
This is good. This is good. Keep giving me more. Keep giving me more.
Why they choose a two-tone color palette, even though every controller ever has been one color as the base model. It looks like an Xbox controller. Interesting. Looks like a Pro controller.
The Switch Pro controller is what you're talking about,
which is a copy
right?
of the Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this question, by the way,
come think of it, it
Yeah?
looks like my Xbox controller.
oh my god, it kind of does. Ooh. Move that analog stick around a little bit, and it definitely does. Yeah, this question, by the way, comes to us again from Daniel of the Reason I Broke podcast, and this one got sent in right before we recorded because this just got unveiled the day of us recording. And I gotta say, man, I like it. I like it because it seems more like an Xbox controller in terms of its ergonomics, and I have told people for a very long time that I prefer the layout and the ergonomics of the Xbox One controller. That being said, I will say this, on the current generation, I know I've covered this before on the show, so I'll quickly sum this up. I think that the Nintendo Switch Pro controller is the best controller on the market. A very close second would be the DualShock 4. I love the DualShock 4. And then a distant third would be the Xbox One controller. And the reason for that is I feel like the build quality on the Xbox One controller, it creaks a lot. Like, I when I play games like Madden or first-person shooters, it makes a lot of, like, you can kind of hear the creaking noises. And I hate that it has to do that because it has the removable battery pack here. So they can't make it all one solid piece, which is why it creaks like that. And the new Xbox Series X controller is also going to have the very similar removable battery pack on the back, where you can either put in AA's or get rechargeable batteries like myself. But I love the DualShock 4. I think it's a great controller. I think it's really balanced. I love the heft of it. I think it's better than the DualShock 3, which is saying a lot because I thought that was a great controller as well. I do wish that the DualShock 5 had better triggers, kind of like the Xbox One, where it's like a deeper trigger. The PlayStation 5 controller, DualSense controller, doesn't seem to have a very deep trigger. Again, I don't know until I hold it in my hands how I feel about it. I hate the two-tone design. I'm not a real big fan of that. But if you black that controller out, if they were to release it in all black, I think it would look really good. And I think people's perception and reception of it would be better.
It's a bonding of Disney and Sony. It's a Stormtrooper controller.
It kind of is a Stormtrooper controller. It kind of does look like a Stormtrooper controller, doesn't it?
Disney has bought out Sony, confirmed.
Well, there you go. I mean,
which Daniel will probably be thrilled with.
I don't think any good could come of something like that. But
what do you mean, more Kingdom Hearts games?
No, I just don't think that we need any more giant conglomerates out there. I think we have enough of those. But like overall, I'm not really negative on this controller at all. I mean, I think that it's going to be kind of a souped up DualShock 4, which I thought was already a very good controller. Some other things that they mentioned is that it's going to have haptic rumble feedback. And as someone who has been a big fan of haptic feedback going all the way to the BlackBerry Storm days in the early 2010s, I will tell you that's a good thing, and that's a very good progression from the traditional rumble system that we have. So I think that's a good thing. The increased battery life, I think we all can agree, is a good thing as well. And I think the ergonomics of the controller are better. So I think overall it's a good step in the right direction. I don't think that fans like the look, but I think they'll get over it once they have it in their hands. I think it'll be a really good controller. I think that we're blessed right now where, as gamers, right now, the worst controller on the market is the Xbox One controller.
No.
Which is a pretty good, well, in my opinion.
Switch-based controller.
Okay, that's a terrible controller, yeah. But I think that, like, we have great options as gamers.
I think the Xbox One controller is the second best controller of all time.
If it wasn't for that flex on the body.
I think the GameCube controller is number one.
I would agree with you on that. I think
Speaking of haptic vibration, though.
Yeah.
We got to go back to tradition. I hate people changing for no reason. Let's go back to the rumble packs.
Ew. Gross.
I want a big chunk on the back of my controller that has the rumble in it.
Oh my goodness, I remember those. Yeah, those were weird, man. So anyway, moving on. Thank you for the listener questions, Daniel and Jared. We really appreciate it, man. It helps us fill out these weeks where there's not a lot to talk about. So
we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do. So real quick, moving through our entertainment topics here. We have Nintendo, who apparently has big plans for Mario's 35th anniversary. They're going to remaster Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine and one other game that
Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2.
There you go.
And a new Paper Mario game.
New Paper Mario game. We get the Lego Mario game that was previously announced, and they're apparently going to release a deluxe version of Super Mario 3D World, which I felt was a really underrated title on the Wii U. Me and my wife had a ball playing that one. So, Andy, how do you feel about all this?
That's two of the greatest games of all time, and Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine coming out.
Okay.
I mean, they could release those games at $60 and I would still buy it.
And I think they might, but I guess we'll see what the retail price on it ends up being. For me, I think it's a slam dunk. I still think Super Mario 64 is one of the greatest Mario games of all time. I thought Sunshine was unbelievably underrated. And I never owned a Wii. So I got to play. Yeah, I never actually owned a Wii. I would go over to my brother's house and play it there, but I never felt compelled to buy one myself, so I never did. But I did play the first Mario Galaxy and thought it was an absolute ball. So I'm excited to play Galaxy 1 and 2 for the first time all the way through.
And new Paper Mario, it's great. I love Paper Mario.
Yeah, Paper Mario is kind of an underrated series as a whole. I mean, Mario Thousand Year Door is a great
2D and 3D Marios.
It is, but they're really good, and I would encourage people to go and check those out.
Especially Thousand Year Door in 64.
Yeah, so
it's 64 GameCube. Sorry.
And they're announcing definite plans as to what they're going to do here in Universal Orlando for Nintendo World. So I'm looking forward to that, because when that finally comes out and it's open to the public, me and my wife will definitely be buying Universal tickets to go check that out. So
yeah, and Super Mario movie.
I think it
can't be as good as the first one.
Shut up, man. Oh, jeez. Okay, well, speaking of movies, South by Southwest canceled their film festival, which takes place over 10 days, right? And wait, it doesn't take place over 10 days, but they're basically streaming the film festival.
Canceled.
There you go, please.
And Amazon Prime partnered with South by Southwest to present, if the director still wants to premiere their movie, that they were going to do it at South by Southwest, which isn't a biggest film festival. It's kind of second tier compared to TIFF and Cannes.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a film festival that movies usually typically come out early. Then they get early reception. That's how movies usually make money, is by the early reviews, and they can get the billboard sayings greatest movie of all time, So they're still doing it, and it's available for the open public, going to be on Amazon Prime for anyone that has Prime for the 10 days. They still haven't announced the 10 days that they're going to do it on. they still haven't announced any movies that are gonna be within this because it's up to the company. I mean, this could be an utter failure, and the companies be like, we don't want to do that. But I think it's really interesting. It's really cool.
I think it's really cool.
Open film festival for anybody to enjoy. Don't think
I like it.
Ever continue to the future to ever do this again?
No, I feel like this is a one-shot, one-time deal.
Maybe they'll do like pay a big fee.
Now that's an
idea.
idea.
In the future online, like pay like $350 or something.
See,
like that.
now you're thinking, Andy, because that's something I could see people paying for. I can't go to South by Southwest and see all this.
I'm not going to travel to Austin, Texas.
But maybe I want to pay.
But if you offer me $350 to watch all the movies, I'll do that.
Even like $100. Think about it. Like if they charge $100 and they split the revenue. I mean, it could be this could be the start of something that's like pay for play.
Which, as I said before, South by Southwest isn't a main tier film festival. Like,
but
TIFF,
it's kind of big.
And Sundance. I forgot to say Sundance.
Sundance is like
top 3.
Yeah.
Like, Con and Sundance are the top 1, and I put TIFF below that, and then South by Southwest. But yeah, like it's still a major thing, you know.
I think it's cool, and I think you're spot on when you say this is something that maybe we could, if it does well when it's free, maybe we look at next year when there is an actual South by Southwest. You know, maybe we monetize it and people can pay like a one-time admission fee and get access to kind of pretend that they were there just for that one aspect of South by Southwest. So I think it's a huge win. So cool stuff. You know, it's a good way to turn a negative into a positive, you know. So speaking of turning negatives into positives, World War I was a terrible war, but oh my god, I'm embarrassed of myself for saying that, but we got this movie out of it. 1917, my pick this week for DCD Film Club. This came out in 2019. So it's a little bit more recent than most film club picks, but
it is the most recent one.
Well, then there you go. So I originally wanted to pick this one when it was in theaters because I was so stoked for it, and I had several people request that we cover it while it was in theaters. But as I mentioned last week, Andy and I kind of had a discussion about it and decided it just really wasn't going to work to have a film club pick that was in theaters, because I realized a lot of people that listen, they like to watch it before they listen to the podcast, and not everybody's able to go to a theater within the course of a week. So
especially in our movie.
Yeah, so that is true. I didn't realize that, but this is rated R, so that would make things a little bit more problematic for some people. So overall, like I said, was looking forward to this one. It is my first time watching it, but I'll let Andy lead off. Since it's my pick, I always like to let Andy lead off and tell us how he felt about my pick this week.
It's your first foreign film you've ever picked?
That's true, it is. Yeah.
It's from England.
I know.
So 1917, directed by Sam Mendes, starring George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman. I mentioned it last episode. Cinematographer Roger Deakins should be mentioned. Incredible cinematographer, arguably the greatest cinematographer of all time. The story is pretty basic. It's a war story. Got to get from point A to point B. That's your movie. The main thing that sold this movie to a lot of people is that it's one shot, or shot to look like one shot, which is a complete lie. They lied to you in marketing. There was, first off, the hidden cuts that were obvious, and you could tell they're hidden cuts. And then at one point, spoiler alert, the main guy, George McKay, falls down the stairs, and it cuts to black. And it comes back. You cannot sell to me that it's a one-shot movie when it literally cuts to black in the middle of the movie. That kind of is annoying. That the marketing is just a complete lie, and that reviewers count it as I'm out of focus. As if reviewers constantly are like, "Oh, it's a one-shot movie. It's incredible." It doesn't feel like a one-shot movie because it takes place over several hours. And I don't really like mentioning other movies in this, but I'm gonna have to. Like Rope, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, one-shot movie, took place over an hour and a half, and that's what makes it so thrilling. And because it's the story that you experience the entire movie like as it's going on at the same pace as it's going on in real life, or like how it's shot, how it's presented. Well, I guess all movies are like that, but you know what I mean. And then to bring upon that, how in Rope all the movie is diegetic, where it's all the music in the movie is within the movie. Talking about the music in this movie, I feel like the music took away from the movie, and that at some points music was used great. Like there's a point where there's a soldier singing, fantastic. But I feel like the epic music during all the big scenes kind of didn't. I did not like it at all. It took away from the movie. The cinematography, as I mentioned, Alfred Roger Deakins before, the Accost, I'm going to mention that, where he's in the city at night, looks incredible. Absolutely beautiful. The CGI in this movie was okay, because they had to use CGI to make it look like a one-shot movie. But there's at one point in the movie I had to point out where he jumps off a bridge into the river. Looks so bad. Looks terrible. And completely took me out of the movie. To compare this to another movie that is kind of similar, Dunkirk. It's a war movie, takes place in World War II. Both of them are war movies that have to deal with time. And timing and pace is a big part of both movies. I feel like just Dunkirk was so good and incredible of how tense it was and how it made me feel, that since I've already experienced that, it took away from 1917. You know? And then I also recently saw a movie, Come and See, which I mentioned that I would recommend for Film Club, but it's so hard to watch that I wouldn't recommend for Film Club. Come and See, also World War II movie, was so like traumatic and so hard hitting that I feel like it affected my viewing of this movie. So if I haven't saw those, I feel like this movie would have been better in my mind than it was. But other than that, besides Roger Deakins putting in incredible cinematography, this movie looks absolutely beautiful. Other than that, the acting is incredible too. I forgot to mention that. George McKay is incredible. The other Dean Charles Chapman, both stars of the movie, do a great job. But other than that, the story is a little bit lackluster, and there's some things that I hate, and Alex is disagreeing with me. So, Alexander.
I mean, every week it's the same thing. I swear I can't. There's no winning on this segment. It never ceases to amaze me. So I completely disagree with Andy's take. I've watched a lot of war films over the years, and I like them. And some people would say, Alex, you're an idiot for liking war films. How dare you? War is a terrible thing. We shouldn't use it for entertainment. But I think that if you treat things correctly from a historical standpoint, it's important and it's relevant in teaching people the atrocities that war can bring. And what I like about 1917 is it talks about, I mean, it's a story about a forgotten war. I mean, people don't talk about World War I anymore. Everybody talks about World War II. And to give you some perspective on this, my sister is the same age as Andy, and me and her are really close, and I think the world of my sister. I think she's one of the smartest people I know, and she has unbelievable potential. When asked about World War I, she couldn't really tell me anything about it. And this is a smart young lady who just knows nothing about that war. And I said, well, did they really talk about it in your history classes or at college? She's in college right now. They don't really, it's just kind of glossed over. And I think that's kind of unfortunate because World War One, there's a lot of lessons that we can take away from it as society, as a human race, as individuals. And I think this movie really does a great job of encapsulating some of those. So first off, it's the best cinematography I've ever seen in a war movie, bar none. There is nothing out there that's a war movie that's been shot better, in my opinion. And it just jumps off the page. I mean, it really just, you feel like you're there. I think that's really what they were going for, and I think it's successful. And the acting, as Andy said, is outstanding. You feel for the characters. When people die, the stakes feel high, and it evokes emotion. It really felt disheartening when certain characters in this film died. It felt even more triumphant that the characters surrounding them carried on with their missions afterwards, which I felt, again, really encapsulated what it would be like to be in a warfare scenario. And I think that's something that you can't discount in the writing. So I feel like the writing, even though it was a very simple story, as Andy said, get from point A to point B, deliver this message, they added a lot of layers to it, a lot of depth to it underneath, maybe some subplots and things of that nature. I think the ending is really poetic. I think it's really well done. He kind of sort of saves the day. Not completely. It never really just... And it felt realistic. Because that's what warfare is. Nothing ever really truly goes to plan. There is no winning. No one wins. Everybody's a loser in this. And that's really the story of World War One. Nobody won World War One. There were no winners. It was just a lot of loss of life, a lot of diplomatic issues that could have been solved through other means. And in the end of it all, the best thing we got out of it was the League of Nations, which was an utter failure. I mean, nothing really got accomplished from World War One. That's why they call it the war to end all wars. Tremendous amount of loss of life for something that really didn't accomplish anything. It wasn't started for no reason. That's a misnomer, historically. Franz Ferdinand was an important politician. He was next in line to the throne. A lot of people say that he was just some random guy, right?
Germany, technically, if you look at the grand scheme of things, Otto von Bismarck was the guy who started all the treaties and set up. He basically threw a bunch of gunpowder on the ground and was waiting for a flame to be sparked.
No, you're right. And if we really want to go a step further historically, you know, the fallout from World War One directly led to World War Two. And, you know, these are things that are important historically.
And the Cold War, you know?
Yeah. And it's important for us, I think, as humans to learn from the mistakes of our race, the human race, the mistakes that were done in the past, the missteps that we've made. Even as we run around as tribes disguised under nations. Because that's really all nations are. It's tribalism. And it has to exist. We've talked about this on this show before, that you have to have nations. You have to have separation at some point. We can't have one unified world government. That's a terrible idea for a number of reasons that I won't go into right now. That's probably more of an Al Talks Aliens type podcast topic. But I think that overall, 1917 does an amazing and wonderful job of encapsulating and presenting World War One in a digestible format. The 2 hours flew by. The action scenes were great. The cinematography was great. I'm going to disagree with Andy. I love the score. It really made me feel that the stakes were high. And some people would disagree with that, and that's fine. I just feel like it's the best war movie I've ever watched. And that's saying a lot, because I love Saving Private Ryan. I love Apocalypse Now. I love Full Metal Jacket. Those are all amazing films. And there's tons more that I'm not mentioning right now that are also amazing, memorable, relevant war movies. But I feel like this is the top of the mark for me. And it's the best film I've watched in a long time. And that's saying a lot because I've watched a lot of good stuff for this podcast. And I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10. And I'd recommend that anybody out there who likes war movies at all or wants to know a little bit more about history, watch this. You won't be disappointed.
What do you think I rated it?
You probably gave it a 5.5 out of 10.
Yeah, because you think I hate things.
No, because I thought that you. So if I had to guess, I would say that you liked this more than you disliked it, and that you thought it was just a little bit above average or good but not great. So that usually means a 5.5 to a 6.5
rate.
Okay, so then I'm gonna say that you gave it a 6.
7.
Okay, so I was close.
Yeah, but your review was kind of punching back at me, I felt like.
Well, because I mean...
Just because I had those negative things to say about it.
I know.
The technical aspect of the movie, the acting, and cinematography. As I said, the movie does, I hate the music. If the music... And if the marketing... Something we talked about for my last pick, It Comes at Night. Sorry, I blanked. If the marketing just lied.
No, you're right on that.
So I was going into expecting this one-shot movie.
I forgave it for that, but...
And it just literally isn't... You're like...
It's evident in the first 10 minutes that it's not one cut.
I mean, obviously there's hidden cuts.
You're
it's
right.
Like Rope.
Yeah.
Rope from the 50s. But Rope still, it has that fun, like, it makes it feel like one shot aspect. This one literally cuts to black.
You're right. I mean, those are fair criticisms. I guess I'm a little bit more forgiving of it because I like the source material.
It's a fake story, by the way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's about World War I. And it's a chronically undercovered war. Like it does not get treatment in movies, television, or even history books nowadays. It's
listen to Hardcore History.
Well, that guy goes into detail, and there's so very few places that do. And it's a darn shame because there is so much that you can learn from World War I. Arguably, you could learn more than you would learn from World War II. And those poor men came back battered and broken from that war with neurological damage from things like mustard gas. And I think that this really conveys an accurate historical idea of how brutal it was. It was trench warfare. It was terrible. The condition.
Not the first, but the biggest trench warfare battle ever.
It definitely was. And World War II was not trench warfare.
The only other
this
war
large of a scale.
The Russo-Japanese War right before World War I was trench warfare.
That and the Russian Civil War was also trench warfare primarily. And that one was pretty brutal too because it was, in the cold and out in the elements. But
all wars in Russia. Come and See, as I mentioned before, is a Russian war movie.
Yeah.
Super traumatic.
But I feel like it was good. I mean, and I'm not, the discourse between you and I.
I'm not saying it's bad.
No, but I'm just saying, like, the discourse between you and I mean, that's kind of what DCD Film Club is. I mean, like, generally we disagree, and that's a good thing. If we just sat here and agreed with each other for an hour, it wouldn't really be much of a podcast, would it?
It's my number 15 movie of the year.
Well, there you go. So at least it made the top 15. So, with that being said, 1917, a great film. Go out there, check it out.
Technically 14.
Okay.
Because Chernobyl isn't my top 15. If you don't want to count that.
Chernobyl so good.
It's 14.
Chernobyl
my number 12.
So good. Anyway.
Chernobyl, in comparison to this, is a war, not really war, but like it's the realistic. It's a history movie.
Yeah.
Or miniseries. That one is so horrific. That
It
is
is.
might be the one most horrifying things I've ever watched. It's not a horror series at all, but genuinely
there's moments
horrific.
Yeah, it's bad.
I don't think I'll ever rewatch it, and I still dislike the last episode, but it's so horrific.
It's great.
Traumatic.
Despite the trauma, it's great, and I think everybody should watch it at least once. And I think I recently saw the entire Chernobyl, like the whole series was on sale, on Blu-ray, and then also digitally on Vudu for I think $15. And I was like, "What?"
Only 6 episodes, hour-long episodes.
Yeah, but what a steal for $15. So anyway, that's 1917. And our next pick for DCD Film Club comes from the Patreon backers. So I believe it's Dumbest Sphinx, right?
Correct.
So, Andy, what has Dumbest Sphinx picked for us? And just keep in mind that it could lead to me picking Dick Figures the movie. I'm holding everybody hostage.
Sphinx picks the favorite. No, I'm kidding. One day I'll actually pick it. You'll get mad.
I thought that was his pick, but okay,
no,
I guess it's not.
It's a meme.
Oh, okay.
Dumbest Sphinx picks. He noticed that there was only ever one documentary ever he picked, which was Tower, one of my picks.
It's a great one.
So he picks a documentary, the Academy Award-winning Best Documentary from 2017, directed by Jimmy Chin and Elizabeth Che Vazirhale. I don't know how to pronounce that. But the movie is Free Solo from 2018. Is a movie about Alex Honnold. He attempts to conquer the first ever free solo climb of El Capitan's 900-meter vertical rock face at Yosemite National Park. So it's a documentary about a guy climbing a rock by himself with, I'm pretty sure, no ropes.
Ooh.
It is on Hulu, Disney Plus, and then if you don't have those, it's on YouTube, Google Play, Vudu, and Prime for $3.99.
I'll probably just end up buying it on Vudu.
He did not. He did with no ropes. He climbed the whole mountain with no ropes.
Well, spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, it's pretty famous.
I guess if he failed,
it's also. I mean,
do a documentary.
Obviously, there would one. I mean, there'd probably be a documentary about it if he failed. Let's be honest. But the guy's still alive, and he has a Joe Rogan podcast, which I would also recommend.
Well, I look forward to checking that out. I do feel like we haven't really had enough documentaries on here, so
we've only had one. Before.
Yeah, just the Tower. So, could be fun.
Tower is incredible, and this one literally won Best Documentary. So
Tower was incredible. That's another one that I would tell people, if you haven't watched it, just go check it out. It really surprised me. I had pretty high expectations going in, but after watching it, I was like, wow, that was not only was it good, but it was really entertaining. I know it was a tragedy. I'm not saying that the tragedy was entertaining, but
it's a tearjerker.
The way they covered it was just so good, and I felt like they covered it better than anybody else ever has. So, just a tremendous documentary.
So, Alex, I know we're way above time.
Yeah, we are.
But Sphinx releases ranking for DCD Film Club.
Okay. And
I want you to react to his top 10.
Okay, sure.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we are above time.
Yeah, let's do it.
Dumbest Sphinx. Number 10 DCD Film Club movie is Gran Torino.
It's a good pick.
Then number 9 is 1917.
Good pick.
Number 8 is Moneyball.
I mean, yeah. Again, I can't disagree.
Number 7, your favorite pick all time.
Here we go. Here
the
comes
killing
the yogurt.
Of a sacred deer.
Yeah, gotta have yogurt in there. I know there's another one coming.
No.
Oh wow, okay.
The other yogurt movie is number 27 on his list.
Oh, okay.
Number 6, SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Which I'm pretty sure is my number 4.
for the memes, yeah.
No, legit.
It's not legit.
Legit best movie ever. 10 out of 10. Number 5, another war movie, Life is Beautiful.
I can't disagree. Life is Beautiful, like, really got me, man. Really got me.
Yeah, I recommended it to someone I worked with before all this stuff shut down everything, and he was like, "Man, that was the most happiest and saddest movie I've ever seen in my entire life."
That's the perfect way to sum it up.
Like, I don't know.
Had me
No
laughing
spoilers. Please watch
and
it.
then crying.
Number 4, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Should be number 1, but I'll forgive him.
Number 3, my former favorite movie of all time, The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Number 2, Harold and Maude.
I can agree with Harold and Maude. Surprised me. That was another one that really surprised me with how good it was.
And number 1, Donnie Darko.
I can't disagree with the ranking at all. I mean, I feel like the top 5, it's personal preference, so you could shuffle some around, but like, there's nothing on there that surprises me, if that makes sense. Like, everything on there is good, and like in The Killing of a Sacred Deer, it's probably objectively a good film. I just don't like it. It's just not for me. So that's about as much as you're gonna get out of me praising Yogurt, but. Yeah, like, that top 5, like, you could shuffle some stuff around, but...
It's completely different than my top 10.
I'm sure my top 10 would be a little different, but my
quickly run through my
top
top
5 would be really similar to his.
To quickly run through my top 10, because we're running a low on time. 10's Goodfellas, 9, Harold and Maude, 8, Life is Beautiful, 7, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, 6, Shawshank Redemption, 5, Synecdoche, New York, 4, 2001: A Space Odyssey, 3, Under the Skin, 2, Hereditary, and 1, the only film club pick you've never seen, The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I mean, again, a good top 10 list that I can't necessarily disagree entirely on any of them. What is disappointing to me is that neither of your top 10 lists includes Midnight Cowboy, but...
Let me tell you where
I
Midnight
forgive
Cowboy
you.
lands.
Oh, probably like 22 or something for you.
22 is Fruitvale Station.
That's a good one.
Midnight Cowboy for me is 29.
Ugh, it's so much better than that.
By the way, speaking of that, Shawshank Redemption, I picked it on my birthday last year.
Mm-hmm.
So my next pick is going to be my new favorite movie of all time, which you still don't know what that is, which I'll reveal to you. I've been savoring it. And then Midnight Cowboy on Sphinx's list, I don't think is there. I don't think he's watched it yet. He is missing 2. I think Midnight Cowboy is one of them. I don't know what the other one is.
I feel like he watched it. I want to say...
It's not on the rankings. He may have watched it, but it's not on the rankings.
I just want to say that he commented, because... And I only say that because there's very few people who comment on our YouTube videos. Like, Dylan commented on our YouTube video, I think, a week or 2 ago. And he said, thanks for wishing me a happy birthday. But
yeah.
I think Dumbest Sphinx generally is about the only person who comments on the YouTube version each week. So, like, I do keep an eye out for it. And I want to say he said something about Midnight Cowboy, but I could be wrong. I'd have to go back. What?
The Fountain.
I don't know, man. Maybe I'm a biased person when it comes to this, but I just really love The Fountain. I think it tells a great story.
His bottom 10, quickly run through it.
Yeah.
The Frighteners, I'm going from best to worst as his bottom 10. Frighteners, Alita Battle Angel,
Jesus.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Trick or Treat, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Top Gun, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and then there's going to be a lot of you picks. Freddy Got Fingered, Thanksgiving, and then fan picks for the rest of the time. Every Christmas Has a Story, and the favorite.
Dude, for real, I mean, I made 4 out of 10 of the bottom 10, and that makes me sad. But To be fair, Freddy Got Fingered and Thanksgiving were supposed to be
Let's see how you rank up
bad.
mine. You should make a ranking and present it next episode.
Well, I will tell you while Andy pulls this up that if you're on Letterboxd and you tweet us your Letterboxd list for DCD Film Club, we will do the same thing next episode for you. Like, no doubt. We're trying to get more people on Letterboxd, so join Letterboxd, rank all the DCD Film Club movies, and we'll read your top 10. Oh my goodness. We'll read your top 10 and bottom 10 and comment on it.
Technically, you're only 4 of them. Your wife's 2 picks are my bottom 10.
That doesn't make it any better. And I swear to God, is Another Earth in that bottom 10?
Number 54 out of 61.
Okay, I hate you. Okay, so that's DCD.
Right above Man of Steel. Above Man of Steel.
That's DCD 75. I'm done talking to Andy for a week. I don't want to talk to him anymore after this. In fact, after we're done recording this,
You're the only person that liked Another Earth.
Okay, after this is over and I stop recording, I'm literally hanging up with Andy instantaneously for ranking Another Earth in the bottom 10
hey,
of
Lucy,
60
someone
movies.
Letterboxd give it 9 out of 10.
Oh my, that doesn't make it any better. Anyway, that's DCD 75. 1 minute of wrap up here with your pal Al. So, t-shirt link always in the description. In addition, there's a link to our Patreon. I want to thank all of our current Patreon backers. Got Dumbest Sphinx in the egg tier. We got Bobby in the Andy tier, and we got Jared and Daniel in the gold tiers. Thank you for your support. It helps us keep this show going, mainly for podcast hosting costs, and I appreciate that, and I know Andy does as well.
Catering gets expensive.
And if you can't, those McDoubles, they add up. So if you can't support us monetarily, that's cool too. You can leave us an iTunes review. That's absolutely free. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, also free. And you can tell a friend about the show. Please tell a friend about the show. Our downloads are really low. Don't think that the current events mean that people are listening to podcasts more, listening less, and I can show you the stats. So, and if you want to see everywhere we're at, go to deadchannelduo.com, and there's a link at the top, and it'll show you every single destination where you can download our podcast every single week. Don't use Spotify. The stats are broken. But if you want to use Spotify, you can. Yeah. So that's it. So, before we get out of here, Andy, anything else you want to say?
Watch Invisible Life on Prime. It's a foreign film. It's in Portuguese. I mentioned it like 3 times in the show. Please watch it. It's incredibly beautiful. I think it's my number 6 movie 2019. I don't remember. Follow both of us on Letterboxd, and as well as Dumbest Sphinx on Letterboxd.
Yeah. And if you join
/ and make your ranking of the film clubs, even if it's just a top 10 of our film club movies.
Yeah, we'll read it on the show.
Us.
Yeah, just tweet us. Yeah, just tweet us and remind us, and we'll follow you.
Alex has to obligatory make a top 10 or a ranking of every single one, or a top 10 best, top 10 worst for next episode.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
I'll send you a list of all of them after the show's over. But that's going to be it for us.
Okay, DC 75. That's it. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.